I'm Shivvy Jervis, a professional business forecaster, and I want to make this a session designed to try and stir you out of any listening fatigue that you might have been feeling from the events of the past 2 years. I'm called on 8 to 10 times a month to share the insights that I've focused on for nearly 2 decades. And having headlined a number of hundreds of events in the past 8 years, there is one type of audience I enjoy being with the most, not just addressing, but engaging with. And it may surprise you to learn that it isn't always that stadium full of 10,000 people, as much as the energy there is fantastic. It's actually addressing a collective of clearly some of the brightest, most brilliant minds in an industry, which I believe of what's unfolding today. The fact that you're all change leaders in your field is very exciting to me, even if we don't get to do this face-to-face for now. Now, I don't want to open by repeating what you might already know, my name, my occupation, my background. That's just a signal for your mind to wander a little, to start thinking about your plans for tomorrow morning or to glance at your phones. Instead, I'll simply say that I'm here to build a bridge between us and what's coming. And I'd rather also tell you something that perhaps you don't know. And it's to do with the part of my work that focuses on neuroscience, on how we think. Because apart from focusing on digital innovations, my lab and I look intensively at brain chemistry, psychology, how we're wired, how that actually shapes business decisions. So it turns out that your mind is capable of operating or running at the same speed as that of a Formula One car. Just take that in. That's 268 miles per hour. It's impressive, right? And not only that, it also turns out that you and I have far more conversations in our minds with ourselves quietly than we actually do with others around us. So your neurotransmitters are firing off constantly, and you'll have many of those mini inner dialogues between now and when I finish this talk. But that's entirely normal, so long as you're not actually talking out loud to the person next to you. Also, don't be afraid to talk to yourself. It's possibly the only way you can be sure that someone's listening. Now, I'm often asked, what does a forecaster do? And perhaps the more humorous definition is, if you want to predict the future, all you've got to do is open the door to the minibar in a hotel room, and you'll be able to predict what a can of Coke will actually cost in the real world 5 years from now. But on a serious note, think of it as a combination of two things: being a structural engineer who comes to your home if you're having a renovation done, tells you what to look out for. You know, they say things like, you need to think about this, you got to preempt that issue, and have you thought about plugging this here? And also combining that with that of an architect who actually comes in to create a more aspirational view of where you want to get to, then works backwards from that to map out the steps needed to make that happen, but keeping us grounded in reality. So healthy dose of vision and the reality. That's what I do. And I believe we've got to, as business and society, look at the intersection of 3 areas when we want to try and make informed predictions about what's to come. Yes, we've got to look at those market signals, those economic shifts. What are people asking for? And we've got to look at emerging innovations. But we mustn't ignore that these innovations come not just from digital, but also from the arena of science. A lot of great groundbreaking developments from the scientific arena actually impact our cities, our communities, our countries. And then we also bring in psychology, because this component truly helps inform so much of business. Even when we think we're making rational decisions, a lot of research finds otherwise. A lot of research says that we don't actually think our way to reason, we feel our way to logic. And in fact, there's a chap called Antonio Damasio, a really fascinating person, who conducted an experiment. So he looked at hundreds of people who had damage to the emotion centers of their brain. And he found, to everyone's surprise but his, that those who had damage there had trouble making even the smallest logical decisions, such as the sequence of making a sandwich, of deciding which pen to pick up first, or in what sequence to eat off a plate first. So that tells us a lot about how actually logic is an emotion. So today we'll be guided largely by the theme of humanizing innovation. I'm seeing all the brilliant digital engineering finally creating a scenario that's keeping your and my core needs, our true behavior, baked in from the word go into these digital products and services that we're using, the apps, the platforms, rather than retrofitting us into it later on in the consumer life cycle, which is very dangerous. And so I actually want to open this chat with examples of where this doesn't happen, why we need our digital tools to absolutely understand the intonations, inflections, and nuances of human language better to get us better as people, dare I say it. So I'm going to play an advertisement from a company in Europe that they're trying to say, don't overcomplicate your life with technology. Use a key in your front door instead of, having to detect a chip embedded in your skin or to be able to read the expression on your face. So let's have a watch.
Playing jazz.
Playing jazz.
Smoothie.
Making smoothie.
Calendar.
No meetings today. Remember? Dentist. At 9:30.
Fire off.
Fire off.
Open door.
Door open.
And we're gonna do one more.
Oh yeah. Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open. Open door.
Repeat that.
Open door.
I didn't understand that.
Hey! Open door!
Play on the floor.
Get on the floor! Open the door!
Wrong voice command. Error.
Hey there. With a rock? Open door. Open door. Higher.
Higher volume.
Higher.
Higher.
So that shows us with a bit of humor that we really need our systems to understand us better. The future isn't just digital. Digital engineering has to become more human. We're on the cusp of the fifth industrial revolution now. So there are these breakthroughs, these shifts that are shaping our future. Let's look at 3 of them today. Whichever capacity you operate in within your companies, you're making decisions, all right? And there are some things that are keeping all of us up at night that are universal. So for one, you're worrying about finding and retaining top talent. You're thinking about the competition from automation. So today I'll show you how this is something we can counter with the use of adaptive AI. And next, you want to attract and engage your clients and stakeholders, but you want to do this armed with the best tools possible. So any digital innovations that can meaningfully help with that delivery is worth looking into. So here, I'll show you the next wave of the connected world. And finally, in making all these key decisions, in your business and your personal life, there are considerations to do with our livelihoods, right? Jobs of the future that we've got to know about to stay future ready. Really, we just want to see where we can apply these innovation advances in our real world. And we've got to make sure we have ethical oversight of it. Right, so let's look at the first area. There's a powerful use case here for where innovation can be more human-led and less about code, clinical lines of code and software. So we're at the cusp of seeing a development that I've been tracking for 5 years now really start to find its way into tangible business use. And this is adaptive AI, or giving software the ability to have far more cognition than before, to understand the human way of thinking. And this is aimed at augmenting our human efforts at managing our work, our finances, our digital lives. And while this is a strand of AI or synthetic intelligence, it is also an approach that a lot of the big tech giants and the startups are already embedding. I'm seeing this being applied to our interactions with our digital tools more and more. So let's think of it as decoding human emotion, where any AI-powered service, which is pretty much everything out there, your virtual assistants, right? Your Siris, your Alexas, your data science dashboards, your business intelligence systems, or even the navigation software that we're using in our car. All of this starts to develop more of the ability to perceive, to understand and respond to us as humans, taking us from where we are now, which is still level 1 or 2 of that conversational ability for software and trying to take us to level 3 or 4. We want to give social intelligence to code. So let's do a bit of show and tell. Let's look at what this can actually do for us. And I crafted a video that has some very, very powerful use cases in action. And I should state, I have no commercial connection to any of the companies. Let's have a watch.
What's my customer number, Jamie?
You can find your customer number on the back of your ANZ debit or credit card. Welcome to Mercedes-Benz. I'm here to help you with your new car.
You look anxious, but rest assured your health is my primary concern.
To deliver more care to more patients for less cost.
So we're not trying to fool people that it is a person, but we're trying to give the biological signals which we respond to. How do we interact with those machines? So they're working on our terms. We're basically putting humans at the center of technology.
When you're responsible for managing complex business processes, you are also responsible for knowledge workers who painstakingly hunt for information hidden from most automation technology. It is able to learn by observing human behavior, taught by humans, to uncover unstructured, hidden data, liberating them to handle exceptions, make the really important decisions only humans can make.
Take us home.
Caro, I will drive.
So what you saw there were just 3 out of many examples, including road safety software that can actually read our levels of distraction or fatigue or road rage in order to keep us safer behind the wheel, to prompt us to either pull over, to put our windows down, to change the music, something that allows us to adjust what we're doing in real time to prevent an accident from actually playing out. Now let's expand on to the other examples you saw. This is very clear relevance in terms of productivity in business and how we work. So you saw intuitive bots, right? These were bots with a face. These are some guys called Soul Machines, who are based in New Zealand. The guy who created it is the pioneer of in Hollywood films. He created all the graphics for Avatar. They've used Kate Blanchett as a voice for it. And what they've tried to do is make bots more intuitive. We're using bots everywhere in customer service, in workplace onboarding, as virtual assistants. These are all automated bots that are trying to have this back and forth dialogue with you, right? And how many times have you and I come away from a conversation from a bot, a text bot on an e-commerce website, or even a virtual assistant, and come away thinking, oh my gosh, I just lost a half hour of my life. I'll never get back, didn't get what I needed. And actually, I haven't been able to reach the brand or the organization that I wanted to reach. So we want to then bring in a system that can understand what the person is asking of it. The idea then is that these kind of avatars, which by the way, can have the face that you saw in the video, or they can be faceless for those of us that might find that a little bit from the uncanny valley. The point is really not the visual appeal. The point is that it has a computational ability to understand the situational context of what you're asking it and the way in which you're asking it and your tone of voice. It reads all these things, and it's available 24/7 outside of the confines of 9 to 5 p.m. for your customers. So we don't replace the human, but we service a customer when the human isn't available. So we're not having to hold on a call for 35 minutes. It also can act as that first point of contact and then pass it on to the human at the right time. The other use case that you saw was catering to how we are all knowledge workers. We're all pulling our information from 10 different sources and formats into a presentation, a report, an analysis, even to inform the bullet points that you and I might share by email to a colleague. But when this adaptive AI software learns from how you work, it then knows which pieces of information you prioritize. What for you qualifies as important data? It starts automating that for you and just asking you to check things before sign off. It's like having an amazing involved assistant sat right next to you. And an example that you didn't see is adaptive AI being used in e-learning platforms. No two of us ever learn in the same way, right? We're not wired the same way, so how could we? These systems then adapt to each of our entirely unique ways of absorbing information and delivering us that training module in the way that we respond to best. Really in all of this, the purpose is we want our systems to read us better. And that's where we're getting to with adaptive AI. Now, as a bridge between adaptive AI and moving forward to the evolution of the Internet of Things, I actually want to touch on something much more relevant to the human side of things, to give us a bit of a tip sheet. In all of this, we're talking about change cycles. We're asking, what does a human-centered transformation actually look like or feel like? And I advise organizations on this really often, that it's easy to think of it as a concept, but quite important to understand not just which innovations to deploy, but what actually goes into making the transformation program successful. All of you watching will have had your organizations go through a transformation program. Maybe you're in one now. In fact, good organizations are continually in these transformation programs. So what are those ingredients that make some successful where others fall flat on their face? And the statistics are a bit alarming. Okay, 60% of programs don't work out. So what are those successful traits? Let's look at some of the success factors. First is breaking down this wrong assumption or myth that we've had for many years, that digital transformation is an IT challenge. It's just for the CTO. That's absolutely wrong. It is not about just infrastructure. You might think it's logical that people would know that human capital is the biggest part of it. But research shows that close to 65% of organizations still look at digital transformation as an IT exercise. And in fact, the graphic you're seeing on there shows us that the priorities in the sequence of a digital transformation journey for most organizations are quite skewed. The people element is coming in second to last. That's just what we don't need, all right? The second aspect is that a lot of analysis my lab and I conducted have shown that we've got to also focus on the moral economy, the responsibilities of our organizations in the wider community, in the communities in which we operate. And those that show the clarity in action on that ethical value to the communities in which they operate will actually thrive in their transformation cycles. And this is indeed reflected in the guiding framework you're seeing on screen right now, which shows how these factors actually are quite interconnected. We don't think of moral obligations of an organization as something that is tied to business success, but it is. And finally, the third aspect of transformation that makes it successful is going to surprise you. The majority of the time, we make our business plans on linear timelines. So a sequence of events in order of occurrence, specific time period, an ordered view. Nothing wrong with that, right? But as futurists, we train to think and plot on non-linear timelines. So looking at the short and long term in parallel, looking at 4 different events occurring at the same time, even if you think they occur in sequence, because in reality, digital transformation has elements happening all at the same time. We've got to weave in and out of it. So that's how to build fluidity. That was a little bit of a tip sheet. Right, back to our second innovation area, the evolution of our connected world. When we have the firepower from high-speed connectivity, and we put this together with other technologies, immersive reality tools like augmented reality, robotics, it starts to open up aspects that were not conceivable beforehand. This then starts to become the evolution of our connected world, or what you and I know of as the Internet of Things. And it takes it into an Internet of Senses, where it's connecting our people, our places, but even our skills to be transmitted across the web to where it's needed the most. So let's look at a few really practical examples of what you can expect to see within the next year and 3 years. Let's take an area of our lives that impacts so much of our day-to-day experience. That's our cities, the everyday ecosystem you and I inhabit when we walk out that front door. So a few examples within this. Much like we want to prevent security issues on our mobiles, we're developing the ability to preempt or prevent issues before they become a serious problem with our cities. So connected sensors that can track air pollution and toxic gases to alert councils before something becomes a problem, or data gathered live from traffic and road usage to increase safety, to give fair warnings of local niggles. And we're also here seeing something really fascinating unfold: digital twin models. The best way that I can describe this is, imagine if you could have an exact digital replica of your body, and you could test all types of fitness and stress tests on it, any activity, any sort of, stress on your body from a particular health issue. And you could be quite sure of what the impact and results of each of those would be in real life. How phenomenal would that be? There are actually people doing this as we speak. But imagine also applying that to our cities. So with digital twins, we have a replica of the city ecosystem down to the last detail. You can then test how certain changes would affect a city in real life. And then another vision, which might seem far-fetched in the connected world, but is rooted in reality, is what we call the tactile internet. And tactile meaning touch, right? So here we're talking about transmitting experiences, a sense of touch across the web. Now, that doesn't mean I give you a high five now when you get to feel it there. That's a bit far-fetched, okay? But I've got a video to bring this to life, and I'll talk over it to show you what I mean. So imagine you have a surgeon who has control of a robotic arm or wears what's called a haptic glove. This is a simple glove full of sensors. And this person is in one end of the world, and you have another surgeon on the other end of the world who's actually in front of the patient. Whatever surgeon A does at one point, that exact procedure, the movement of his or her fingers down to the same millimeters breadth of movement is actually replicated in real time at the other end of the world. And life-saving remote surgery like this is already taken place. We've had, I think, approximately 25 of them already successfully taking place in the last year alone. And we'll use this to teach engineers and medics, for now, professions that rely on the transmission of touch via hands, and later we'll expand this even further. And the last evolution of connectivity I want to bring to your attention is to do with augmenting our real lives. So research shows that we absorb 6 times more information when we are shown it in an immersive way. So what augmented reality is I basically hold my phone up, I open my camera, and a piece of digital information is overlaid onto my real world. So I can see something unfold in my living room, in my kitchen, at my front door, but actually it's in the digital world, and it brings it to life in a way that nothing else can. This isn't gimmicky. It's being used by engineering, health, medicine, defense even. And a lot of businesses are starting to use it to persuade, to inform, to engage consumers. So those that aren't are really missing a trick. So let's watch a video that brings some of those really great applications to life. I've included both the version with a headset on, like the Microsoft HoloLens, and also the version that doesn't require that at all. Let's have a look.
Cities are an example of how much information there is in the background, and what AR is really good at is taking that information and making it visible.
So how about a city project, like a bridge, or a transportation center, a freeway, or even a giant skyscraper that you're trying to build? How could AR help in those situations?
AR can help in all those cases. You can take a 3D model of your skyscraper and visualize it at true scale. So now you can explore it and see what it's like even before you build it.
Most cities, they have construction, they have power and water and utilities of all kinds, and all of those services rely on data as the pulse of how they operate. Augmented reality is allowing them to get that out of the servers and into the hands of the workers that need to make decisions.
Anything that you've got data for, whether it's the pipes running under the road, the cables, we can pop the helmet on and visualize them and see where they're running, and we can visualize our new buildings overlaid on top of that as well.
So being able to have a model that's geospatially located, being able to put on a helmet from any viewpoint and look at what the impact will be is something that would be important.
Those are just a few, but very forward-facing and realistic applications within our connected world. And so, in conclusion now, we're going to go to jobs of the future, something we all want to know. What are some of the most pivotal areas that we're going to see growth in that we should be aware of for ourselves, for our children, for our colleagues? Let's look at 5 today. Now, the first one you see on there is out of an ethics expert. And I know I alluded very briefly earlier to the importance of the immoral economy, right, when it came to digital transformation. Ethics must find its place in lines of code. All our digital innovations are built by people. Hence, they are not infallible. They carry bias, right? How can a database system use sensitive information about a consumer in a way that doesn't breach moral codes of conduct? What are the ethical implications of certain web applications? When a semi-autonomous car hurts someone, where will the onus lie? We've got hundreds of ethical dilemmas that are going to continue to arise. So we will really need more talent to be well versed in this. This is also more than one role. It's not just a chief ethics officer. We need to start thinking, and this is happening already at some of the progressive organizations, about getting many members of our workforce, such as those of you watching across business lines, to be engaged with this, to be trained in this. And so the next role is that of virtualized medicine. So given you're hearing this with both your personal and professional hats on, and health has been a huge thing on our minds for the past 2 years, I wanted to share this briefly. We are going to need more medics, more surgeons, more trainee doctors even, who have the ability to deliver much more than a basic telehealth consultation. Now we're going to have to allow them to learn how to virtually scrub in, so to speak, when it comes to advising and taking part in procedures that might even save the life of someone in your family one day. Another role you see on there is that of alternative energy planners. You might think, is this something directly connected to my role? Well, actually, it will be, because the goal of mitigating climate change is universal, and it does impact the sustainability targets and operational targets of all organizations. As we transition towards a clean energy future and global supply of fossil fuels begins to run out, alternative energy, such as biofuels, geothermal power, tidal energy, hydrogen, will be much more critical. I'd urge you to look it up. It's fascinating. And we will also need the talent and jobs to help drive this forward. This is actually growing at 60% growth rate. Another area worth knowing is that of edge computing experts. And the word edge in this context literally means geographic distribution. So edge computing is computing that's done at or near the actual source of the data, instead of pushing it all to the cloud at one of a dozen data centers and get them to do all the work. Now, it doesn't mean the cloud disappears. What it means is the cloud comes to you. And we're going to see jobs in this field start to surge even higher this year on. And finally, there's immersive media experts. We're going to need communications material, brand experiences for the mixed media forms that you saw in the video, where we overlay the digital information onto a real world. This is going to be really important. And within adaptive AI, the area that I mentioned, you might think it just needs coders. Well, actually, we're going to need to use comedy experts, psychologists, behavioral experts to feed in to build those systems that I showed you early on in the talk that will actually try and read people and what they need and understand our situational context, because it's all about people. And psychologists, behavioral experts, stand-up comedians, they read people really well. That's their business. So my closing thoughts. Today, you've heard about more human-centered AI and synthetic intelligence, the evolution of our connected world, jobs of the future, and some success factors for digital transformation. You know, given the uncertainty in politics, in the economy, in business that's playing out as we speak, you might think, and I would totally understand this, that it feels very daunting to stay close to experimentation in your roles, in your organizations, even in your personal lives, when all you want to do is steady the ship. But one thing doesn't have to forsake the other. We can actually have that steadiness alongside a bit more maverick thinking. And as futurists, we've got to maintain a really healthy level of understanding this experimentation and risk when we advise organizations and governments. And so the leaders I counsel are seeing that in order to scale digitally, they've got to enable these pockets of experimentation across the business. These have shown to create more revenue, new business lines, updating existing products and services. But, you know, ultimately, my hope is that we've got to steer away from building a future that is dystopian, where we're at the mercy of automation, where we're displaced from our jobs. I believe we can find ways to work alongside these new advancements, keeping us in the equation, quite like the examples I showed you earlier. So I want to leave you with a video that captures how I believe we should approach preserving humanity amidst this fourth industrial revolution and connected world. Let's have a watch.
For over 35 years, Lenovo has been a global technology partner, an end-to-end solutions and services provider, putting smarter technology in the hands of people who do amazing things with it. We partner to provide open solutions that meet the unique needs of our customers and deliver trusted expertise to serve the world's researchers, pioneers, and visionaries who harness data to transform businesses, improve industries, and solve humanity's greatest challenges. You are the data-centered, driven, ambitious people in every industry, at every scale, everywhere in the world. And Lenovo is dedicated to being your most trusted technology partner, because we know it's not just about what smarter technology powers, it's who. Smarter solutions for you, the data-centered. Smarter technology for all.
The soundtrack in that video always gets me, incredibly moving. You know, we have all the talent and the know-how to try and help us bypass the route of a fractured or dystopian future. And we want a human-led digital future. We're absolutely getting there with all the innovations that I'm seeing. Thank you ever so much for listening. And now let's go into our Q&A.
Thank you so much for this brilliant insight. I really like that. And personally, coming from a neuroscience research background, like I really like the what you brought us today, like the fact that neuroscience and psychology can be a source of inspiration for many technology and can be like a guide to improve the technology and to improve our life. Also, I like the way you intersect, you showed how the technology can be intersected, and that brings to one challenge on one side, the removing silence in technology infrastructure, on the other side, the removing resistance from the people to accept the new technology, and third, and last but not least, like I really like the human augmentation part. I'm like a big fan of transhumanism. So I truly believe like that technology can improve our life and can augment like our way to work and to live our daily life. And so I see already a lot of interesting questions here in the panel. So I would like to pick one of them for you. So of course, we have many of our customers as an audience today, so they are wondering how we can relate the technology you talked about with Lenovo, Nutanix, Intel. Can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
Of course, and thank you for your wonderful comments, Valerio. You know, objectively speaking, and you know, I have no commercial connection to our lovely trio of hosts who have invited me to speak here. So this is a very objective view. I truly believe that organizations like Lenovo, Nutanix, and Intel have incredibly impressive and well thought out R&D innovation. And also the innovations and the developments that these three organizations are pushing out have a very, very, very important distinguishing factor compared to a lot of other companies. And that is, it is a real continual effort. It's a sustainable effort and momentum, not just pushing one thing out and then resting on those awards and accolades and not doing anything further. So for me, that track record is absolutely very much positioning all three companies as real leaders in this space. And because of all of this, we then have the technology layer that actually allows all this wonderful breakthroughs, all these innovations that we've been discussing in the talk, to actually take effect, to be actioned and allow, as you say, many of your clients to be able to even use these things. It's because of the connectivity and the technology layer. And in all these scenarios, Valerio, that I presented, of course, you and I know there are so many strands of data being processed, huge loads of data. And so it's really essential to have a very powerful, but also an immediate computing power, storage, processor speed, and not just one solution, but hyper-converged solutions that are integrated and working together. So without these components working at a speed that you and I can't even perceive, we won't be able to see these developments I've spoken about. And so the very fact that we are seeing these developments means that organizations like Lenovo, Nutanix, and Intel are doing really valuable work behind the scenes to make it all happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, probably most of the people, like when they see the technology, they don't really appreciate the level of complexity that can be like beyond an infrastructure to support certain kind of workload. And as you said, now we have different source of data. We have based on the history and the evolution of the technology, we have also different kind of infrastructure, from cloud to edge to fog, smart devices, different IT departments, different offices and businesses, and all these things has to be integrated together. And of course, like Lenovo, Nutanix, and Intel are actually providing the technology that can support this kind of integration, that can support hyper-convergent infrastructure, or cloud integration, service integration, data science as a service, and so forth. And so we have one example, for example, one of our top-notch example, which is the Miami Jewish Health institution, which is actually using Intel, Lenovo, and Nutanix infrastructure for this for their workload, and helping them to make easier when we talk about human at the center of the technology. We also have to take in consideration, in my opinion, the process of democratization of the technology, making easier the access to the utilization of a given infrastructure, so that expert of any field can actually leverage the power of those computer resources and do the work they have to do. So I really believe that is one of the most powerful message that comes from us as an OEM, and also from Nutanix and Intel. So I see another question, and actually that is something that is really appealing to me. You mentioned that the Internet of Senses, which is really really funny, and also really true. I mean, right now we are talking about metaverse, we are talking about Internet of Things, immersive technology. You mentioned the mixed reality rather than augmented reality or virtual reality, and I wanted you to dive a little bit deeper into this concept, into the concept of edge, compute at the edge, and IoT. So if you can give us a little bit more of a background for our audience.
Sure. And the Internet of Senses, as we call it, it's something, in fact, being closely developed by someone called Professor Misha Dola, who's at King's College in London. So I'd urge anyone that wants to find out more to look that up. And what they're doing, Valerio, is, the concept, even 10 years ago, of being able to transmit the sense of touch across the web, me sitting, let's say if I was in India and you were, let's say, in Australia, hypothetically, I know we're not there right now, but if that were the case, and I am, let's say, a particular surgeon who's developed a really pioneering technique for heart surgery on children, and you are a surgeon at the other end, but this isn't something you specialize in, and you have a patient who needs life-saving surgery, right, for their child, they can't possibly book me to fly me out on that exact day and time. And of course, it's an emergency surgery. So the thought that having surgeon B, let's say that's hypothetically you, being physically present in a hospital where you are in Australia, as an example, and you have the patient in front of you. But because of mixed reality, because of having these specialized cameras that can really show the surgeon in another continent, let's say if it was me, I can see exactly what you're seeing. And then, apart from being able to see all of it, I'm seeing it in real time with very low latency, meaning I'm seeing it pretty much as you are seeing it, not 3 seconds later, not 5 seconds later, because of the Internet of Things, because of where connectivity is now. And the third aspect there is, if you throw in just a little bit of a sprinkling of robotics, there's something called the Da Vinci surgical system. fascinating thing to look up. It would mean that I have robotic hands at my side as the doctor who's developed this technique. I put my hands into these robotic hands. Whatever I'm doing at my end is replicated at the other end across the world in real time. And because I can see all of it, I'm able to do it in an immersive way that we haven't seen before. And Valerio, there's been something like 27 or more of these successful surgeries that have taken place, remote healthcare. In fact, during the pandemic itself, in 1 year alone, I believe, that's just groundbreaking. And to know that we can expand this and commercialize it even more for businesses is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Edge is one of those, like right now is one of those trends that really worth to watch out. And there is a full scenarios of, I like to think that like a data center or cloud services will no more being physically centralized, but more like logically centralized and physically distributed. And so like in this sense, like we made, as a Lenovo, we made a lot of efforts. Right now, I think we are one of the few OEM in the whole world who is providing like one of the most cutting edge technology for computation at the edge. Like AI right now needs like a lot of computational power to run. You have this very large model with, millions, if not trillions of parameters to simulate or emulate human intelligence, which is still far away from human intelligence. It's still narrow intelligence, but nevertheless, it needs a lot of computational power, and you need something like very powerful processing machine, but deploying at the edge has a lot of challenges. So you have to deploy machine outside the data center, which is a very protected environment, without any dust or vibration or very hot temperature, very cold temperature. So you need like some computational devices that are able to stay like in very harsh condition. And in that sense, like Lenovo has produced now we have like two of these very special kind of servers called the SE350 and SE450, and we worked with Nutanix to adapt their virtualization solution to work directly at the edge, and that makes a lot of brings a lot of advantage also for, as I said, to bring AI capabilities closer to the source of data, as you said. Like, we have more and more need of, computer vision solution, and computer vision will require like being connected to the camera close as possible with very low camera latency, and the ability to also protect the data. Privacy concern is one of the major topic right now in AI. You need to process data there where it's produced without storing it or without streaming it. So let me see if we have more question here.
I've just had a big note come in saying that we may be out of time. So,
okay.
But, happy for you to fire away if you have something I can answer quickly.
Okay. Okay, probably it's like it's a bit redundant, but you went over job disruption. You said like we don't want to create this dystopic idea of the future, and I'm a big fan of Kei-Fu Lee, which is one of the supporter of AI technology, and says the good use of it is like dynamite. It can be used to dig a cave or to do bad thing, but the technology per se doesn't harm or is not a threat. So like the same thing right now is it's a lot of topic around like job disruption. Don't you think that instead AI technology or in general augmented reality, etc., are going to augment the professional capabilities, even for surgeons, for high professional workers, or even for not high professional workers, not expert, but removing from them the burden of tedious work, and so leaving more space for them to grow in some other areas?
Exactly. So all these technologies, the point of the ones I focus on especially is that they don't necessarily just decimate jobs and take them away from the people who really need it. The point is I want these innovations to be human-centered so that A, they work in an ethical way, but B, they actually allow people to stay in their roles, and these kind of applications augment our roles in the sense that they add value to it. And you gave a great example of being able to take the tedious parts away from your job. So you and I, as people in our roles, we can focus on the part that actually needs the human, because what AI cannot do and won't be able to do for many, many years, and I hope we never see this, is AI cannot replicate human consciousness. It can't replicate empathy, intuition, persuasion, the way you and I are speaking right now. An AI system is not going to convince you or I the same way emotion can, the same way actual human-to-human contact will. And so I do think that automation has been around for decades. It's not new. It's always had the effect of removing thousands of jobs from the sectors, from the particular functions that can be automated. But it also can create and is creating as many jobs, if not more, than it has replaced.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Shivvy, once again, thank you for your amazing talk. That's about all we have for today, but thank you for joining us. Thank you again to our audience for being here. We hope you enjoyed this presentation today, and we look forward to seeing you on the 14th of June for Dr. Sue Black keynotes around digital upskilling. You can find out more about Sue at the nexttechreality.com. Then thank you and see you all.
Pleasure. Thank you.